Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Belly to Belly. And we're here today to talk about preparation for SelectUSA. And we're with great friend Emily Smith from American Electric Power. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
It's great to see you again. And so our audience are companies that are coming to SelectUSA, probably a few that are still kind of thinking about it as well. And really our goal today is to enlighten them as to American Electric Power and the great resource and great resources that you provide to companies coming into the U.S. And we'll certainly talk a little bit about SelectUSA as well. But do you want to maybe start by talking about what you do to specifically help companies coming into the U.S. in terms of setting them up so that they're very successful?
Sure. So I'll start by saying American Electric Power. So we are a power provider. We ultimately power the facility. We turn on the lights. But I think one thing I always like to mention to international audiences, especially, is that I think utilities in the U.S. play a unique role versus anywhere else in the world. And that is that they're more involved, not just on the power front, but many of your major investor-owned utilities have economic development groups within them. And so AEP, for example, we have a robust team of about 30 that are focused on economic development. And so how we're helping international companies is we're helping find an ideal site location. And that could be, oftentimes we work with more energy intensive companies just by way of, if companies have an energy intensive project, we can help find the capacity, we can help find reliable power. And if renewables are of interest, we can help find that clean power as well. So we're helping companies, of course, our expertise is power. So anything that is around energy solutions, that could be on-site generation, to do rooftop solar, for example, backup energy storage. Maybe it's helping, say, an international company has goals and they want to cut their carbon emissions by X%, for example, and that factors into where they want to locate. So we're helping companies develop that roadmap, do energy advisory services around that to say, okay, here's the most economical options for that for you to meet your goals and to also be successful. So we're helping companies a lot on that front. But power aside, we also have an in-house research team, and we're helping companies with exploring a myriad of factors that go into deciding where to locate. So that could be average wages, labor availability. It could be, things outside of just, your power cost, supply chain, access to customers, all of those things. We have an in-house research team that's doing custom research, helping find where that ideal site would be. And then we also have some incentives. So for example, once a company is looking to locate, we can help reduce some of those power costs as they're ramping up operations, all of those things.
Wow, that's fantastic. Such a broad array of services, certainly with power being a superpower, but really a lot of site selection support and a lot of the strategy in terms of locating. That just sounds great. So obviously SelectUSA is a massive event, and you all have been participating for many years. Can you maybe give a little sense of why you participate? What is it about the event in particular that attracts you?
Yeah, so this event in particular, it's actually our biggest event of the year. It's the only event that our economic development team exhibits at and has a booth. So we've had a booth and we've been a sponsor since the inception of the program. And for us, I always say it's a no-brainer because everyone is there. So all of our state and local partners are there. Our vendors are there. Our not only, most importantly, all of the international investors under one roof. You just can't miss it, is my opinion. And we've had projects that have been successful that have came directly, we're a direct result of this event. And for that reason alone, we will continue to do it forever. But there's also just a lot of learnings, that our peers are there as well. So I think just having that networking advantage in general is great too.
Yeah, no, someone the other day called it the World Cup of U.S. market entry. So yeah,
it is.
Probably, yeah. Except for this happens every year, not every 4, I guess, is the
yeah
difference.
Exactly.
So, and the last question around any tips that you have, thinking of the audience, some of them will have been to the U.S. before and may already have some operations here and customers, and so they're pretty familiar with coming to the U.S. Probably haven't been to SelectUSA before. Others, this will not only be their first trip to SelectUSA, but maybe even their first trip to the U.S. And are there tips you'd have? I guess both about sort of ways to leverage SelectUSA best, but also even other things they could sort of bolt on to their trip.
Yeah, and I think, for all the reasons I said that why we are there and why we wouldn't miss the event, it can also be overwhelming, I think, for an international investor, especially if it's the first time to the US. So, one of the, I guess, key pieces of recommendation, it's probably not groundbreaking, but is just to do your due diligence ahead of time. Don't go in without a plan. Kind of have an idea of who you're going to meet with before you go. Definitely do the matchmaking portal. I found that really valuable. And setting up meetings ahead of time. So I think, we're all busy and we schedule these events, but you don't carve out any time before or after the event. So I like to actually block my calendar to do the follow-up. And if we can have the meeting in advance and then the second meeting is in person at the event, it's so much more productive, so much more successful. So that's one piece of advice. And then also just having an idea. I know every investor is at a different stage of the project, right? They may be exploring it first stage, and it can be good for that. But I would say having some idea of what being somewhat developed in your plan is definitely a bonus, because everyone you're going to talk to is going to want to hear. They're going to ask, well, what are your plans? What kind of building are you looking for? And so I realize that all that criteria might not be fleshed out, but to have at least a basic framework for what your intentions are in the US can help make those meetings a lot more productive. And having, and again, doing the homework ahead of time to see who you want to meet with ahead of time, I think it will make it much more successful.
I love both of those tips in terms of pre-setting meetings, both pre-event and then obviously using the networking app to set them at the meeting. But then also the idea of really being clear in terms of outcomes that you want. One of the things I've seen, and I'd love your thought on this, is I've seen some companies not only come with real clear description of what they want, but also actually just having a one sheet in terms of maybe a little background on the company, but also the things they want. And I guess as I sort of think about it operationally, the idea that they might meet you and that you have something not only easy to refer to, but also that you can hand it off to other people in within your sort of orbit to be able to sort of bring people up to speed quickly and exactly what the company was sort of intending.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, having some kind of project spec, and then, meeting in advance, because everyone has different, like we have an intake form, for example, that asks for specific criteria for their project. And we always say, you may not be able to answer all of these questions now, we get that, but fill it out to the best of your ability. What are your key location drivers? Is it access to customers? Is it, energy cost? So knowing all those in advance. But yeah, perfect example. So one year I remember we had a meeting at the booth, and it was our economic development manager in Indiana. And she met with some investors that came by and they were interested, they knew specifically in Indiana. She literally walked across the hall and grabbed our local partners at the county level and the state, and they all three sat down, and that company has actually landed in, I think it's Muncie, Indiana. And so that was one of our success. But I'm like, well, that's a perfect, they came ready though with, this is the size of building we need. This is how many jobs we're going to create. So they were prepared, and that was a great success story we saw out of the event.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So I would normally say, gosh, it's you might also want to wear comfortable shoes, but last year, Emily was wearing a cast. So you'd probably advise companies not to have any type of lower body injury before the event.
I actually have a scooter, and the scooter was very, I would not have made it without the scooter because it helped me get around. But it was definitely a conversation starter. I'll say that.
And you bump into somebody, I mean, it just starts a conversation. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone asked what happened, so I started making up different stories
Yeah,
that were more
exactly. Yeah.
interesting.
Oh, yeah, the bear I attacked, it was all sorts of, yeah, no doubt about it.
Exactly.
That's
Yes, I'm
awesome.
hoping that is not the case this year.
No skiing before the event, no
Nope,
trail riding or anything like that, for sure.
no.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Emily. This has been wonderful, and you shared so many great bits of information. We're going to put your contact info in the description, so please reach out to Emily. And as she said, let's meet before the event, so that when we're meeting at the event, we're kind of second level in terms of what we're working on. So, but thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you again for having me. It's always a pleasure.